All right, we're live. Greetings, everybody. Great to be with you in our Money Revealed Masterclass, our Wealth Masterclass. This has been an extraordinary journey that we've had over a period of time here. And in many respects, we wanted to save the best for last. You all saw Ryan Levesque in the actual series. Many, many glowing comments, very inspirational, very informational, all the right elements of adding value to your life. So we knew that when we wanted to have the summation of this entire experience, we wanted Ryan to be there to put a nice bow on this whole thing. So you're going to have a presentation from him tonight. We're going to interact. I'm going to interview him on some things, and he's going to present some great information. And then remember, question and answer is Thursday night. So for right now, make sure that if you have any questions, you can post them. Our customer service people are going to be picking them up. But just remember that Thursday night is when we're going to handle the questions. But we still want you to communicate out there. So right now, you're watching us out on the viewing page. Go ahead and check in with us. Tell us your name, where you're hanging out from. And if you have any comments that you want to make, good time to do it. Every once in a while, maybe I'll pause and do some shout outs along the way. But I don't want to take really much time at all away from Ryan, because every time I listen to him, it's nothing but gold. There's going to be a lot of great content here. I'm assuming that you have a pen and some paper you're ready to write, but also know that that this is recorded, and it's live right now. It's recording as we're going live, and that recording will be available to you. So if you need to revisit things, no problem. You'll have it there, just like all the other modules of the masterclass. It is there for you. So we're excited to bring you this information. One other little piece of housekeeping for you is that a bonus that you got with your Money Revealed program was Ryan's book. So if you did not get the book, you had to register to get the book shipped to you. If you did not get that, if you did not click the link to go get that, and you don't know where that link is, then I'm going to give you the contact for our support department. Tell them, hey, I want Ryan's book. They'll send you the link. You can go and get it. So it's Masterclass Support at moneyrevealed.com. I'll mention that again later in case anybody missed it. But that's how you go get the book. It was a very generous free bonus from Ryan that you should absolutely take advantage of. The information in that book will more than pay for all your investment in this Money Revealed series. So with that, Ryan, thanks so very much for doing this.
Patrick, it's awesome to be here. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to share, and really excited for our time together.
Me too. Thank you. I know your time is valuable, and I know you always deliver value, so we'll jump right in. And I know some of this was talked about in the main series, but I think it bears repeating because it gives context for everything that we're going to be receiving tonight. Let's talk about how you got started, and maybe why. What were the inflection points that made you so successful?
Yeah, so my background, I grew up very blue collar background, first person in my family to go to college. My dad worked nights as a shipping clerk, basically loading boxes on the back of a truck, and my mom cut hair in the basement of our house to earn extra income and help pay the bills. And so, I didn't really have a model of success from a financial standpoint growing up. Like, I didn't know, I knew you could be a doctor, I knew you could be a lawyer. And I knew, as I was telling my kids the other day when I was young, that you could be a millionaire, but I didn't know what that meant. I just kind of knew that was a thing. So when I went to college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do growing up. I studied neuroscience. I think I was going to become a neurosurgeon or a neurologist, and I studied Chinese, and I did it at the Ivy League level at Brown. And when I graduated, I knew I didn't want to go into medical school. My best friend from college actually is a neurologist at the Mayo Clinic. So he went all the way. He studied neuroscience, went through, got a medical degree, and has an advanced degree. But I knew that wasn't something I wanted to do. I was fascinated with how the brain worked, but I didn't want to limit myself to just such a narrow aspect of medicine. I knew it wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. So after college, people always want to know, if you were a blue collar kid like that, how did you pay for college? Well, growing up, when my grandparents passed away, I was 10 years old. They passed away within less than a year apart, and they passed away very young. And they didn't have much, but they left both my sister and I a $5,000 inheritance each. That was their entire, that's everything that they had to their name after, paying for their funeral and everything like that. So $5,000 to my sister, $5,000 to me. And my mom basically said, listen, you can do what you want with this. Grandma and grandpa said, you can do what you want with this. And I decided that I wanted to invest that money. Instead of buying a dirt bike, instead of buying video games, whatever, I wanted to invest. And it was at this time that I was reading, funny enough, as a 10-year-old kid, reading Peter Lynch's books. I had S&P 500 books that I don't know if they still make them anymore, the size of phone books, where they had every single tear sheet from the S&P 500 in this giant phone book. And for whatever reason, I was obsessed with going through these companies and reading about them and learning about their performance and all this. And so I made the decision to invest the $5,000. Long story short, by the time I turned 18, 8 years later, I transformed the $5,000 into about $85,000. And that's basically how we paid for college, how I paid for my college education. So I became fascinated with the markets at a young age. And so after graduating, I decided to work on Wall Street. I got a job with Goldman Sachs, with the investment bank Goldman Sachs, in their investment management division. And I was working with high net individuals and their investment strategies. So I became really kind of fascinated with that. But once again, I kind of realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life doing this. Like if you've ever worked on Wall Street or you know anybody who has, you work 80 to 100 hour work weeks. And that's not an exaggeration. You literally get up in the morning, you go to work at 7 in the morning and you work till midnight every single night, sometimes 6 and 7 days a week. That's your life. And I saw people, burning out. They didn't have families. They didn't, I just knew that wasn't the career for me. At the same time, I had this interest in the back of my mind where I was still fascinated with China as a culture and the Chinese language. Originally, I started studying Chinese because I was fascinated with traditional Chinese medicine and the impact on the brain. That's kind of like what got me into Chinese in the first place. But in that process, I became really fascinated with China as an emerging market, as a growing economy. And I wanted to find a way to live and work in China. So I had this opportunity to leave Goldman and work for the financial services company AIG, American International Group, and basically grow into a role to lead their expansion across China. So at the time, AIG was, I believe, a Fortune 10 company and one of the biggest companies in the world, largest insurance company in the world at the time. I don't know if it is at this moment, but this is back in 2004. Largest insurance company in the world. And they offered me an opportunity to basically, in my mid-20s, to lead their expansion across China. And so here I am, mid-20s. I'm basically achieving like my dream career, dream job. I thought I'm getting everything I could possibly want in life. Like amazing salary, amazing lifestyle, car, driver, paying for my apartment, a cook in my house, like everything that you could possibly imagine. My wife and I, my wife whom I met in college, we got married, college sweethearts. We moved to China together and kind of started on this journey. And it was, I think in my third or fourth year in China where I realized I had this quarter life crisis. And this is the first inflection point. I wanted to kind of give the story leading up to this, but this is the first inflection point where I said to myself, is this it? Like, is this it? Is this life? Like, this is it, right? Like I've achieved professional success. I'm making good money. And why am I not happy? Like from the outside, most people would say like, this is anything that you'd ever want. Like this is incredible. And I just felt so empty inside. And it led me to this crisis point where I ended up writing a 17-page letter to my mom, because I figured she's the only person in the world who would read it, and basically telling her that I was unhappy. And I said, within the next 6 months, I'm quitting my job and I'm going to start my own business. And she immediately picked up the phone and called me when she got this letter, an email. It was a 17-page attachment in an email. She picked the phone and called me, and she said, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, are you having a nervous breakdown? Do we need to fly out there to China to be with you?" And I said, "No, Mom, everything's totally okay. I just had this moment of clarity where I said, I just had this moment where I realized I'm not going to live forever. And if I'm going to do something with my life, now's the time. Like, if not now, then when? Right? I just woke up one day and just had this moment of clarity, and it led me to write this letter. And this is now in 2008. And within 6 months, the company I was working for, AIG, I woke up one day and stepped inside my office, and every day I got the Wall Street Journal Asia edition delivered to my desk. And I remember distinctly, I woke up that day, I walked into my office, and the newspaper said in the headline, AIG to file for bankruptcy. And if you've ever, like, I'm not a very woo-woo person, but if you've ever felt like the universe or fate or God or whatever belief system you have has conspired to something that you knew was going to happen, that was this sign. I just recognized this as the sign. And I called up my wife and I said, honey, check out WSJ.com, the WallStreetJournal.com. I said, look at what the headline reads. And she said, what does it mean? I said, honey, I don't know, but I'm not going to stick around to find out. And that very day, I typed up a resignation letter, printed it out, signed it, walked it into my boss's office, and gave him my notice. And immediately he said, who poached you? Like, what Chinese company has, poached you, and what are they paying you? And I said, you're gonna think I'm absolutely crazy, but I have nothing. I have nothing lined up, absolutely nothing. And the excuse I gave my boss, just to make it, to kind of soften the blow, was at the time my wife was getting a PhD and she was at Hong Kong University. I was based in Shanghai. And so we were flying to see each other like every other weekend, like this crazy bi-country marriage. And I basically said, listen, I don't want to be apart from my wife anymore, which was also true. And we want to be together again, and we're going to figure out what our next steps are. And what he didn't know is in the back of my mind, I'd been yearning to start my own business. And so I quit my job, donated everything I owned to charity, except for what I could fit into 2 suitcases, moved in to student housing with my wife. She was in student housing in graduate school, 400 square foot apartment in Hong Kong, and got to work. And for weeks, I kind of ran around in circles, like having conversations with my wife every single night, like what kind of business are we going to start? And like, Patrick, we were all over the map. At one point, I mean, I thought I was going to open up a Mandarin school. So like a school teaching expatriates and foreigners how to learn how to speak Mandarin Chinese, which is something that I had done. And so that was an idea. I thought we might start an import-export company. We were just going to do import-export. That was an idea. At one point, I thought I was going to open up a McDonald's franchise. I know, like, terrible idea. At one point, we were going to open up a cupcake shop in Hong Kong, to the point that we actually baked cupcakes in our home and like designed them. I have photos of the whole thing. We're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is where the branding. We're like, this is crazy. So all these like crazy ideas. And I felt really defeated because, I was one of these people, and I don't know if anyone can identify with this, where I knew I wanted to be my own boss. Like, what I wrote in this letter to my mom is I said, Mom, I never want to have to be on my hands and knees and have to beg somebody else for more money. And that's where I felt that I was. That if I wanted to grow my earning power, if I wanted financial independence, basically I needed to do the equivalent of walking to my boss's office in my hands and knees and beg for more money. And I said, I never want to be in that position. I want to be in control of my own destiny. I want to determine how much money I can make. I want to be the one that's in control of that. And I was frustrated because I didn't know what to do. And I was also very afraid. I didn't have a model of success. I didn't have a father or a mentor or someone that I, at an early age that was successful. And I said, okay, I'm going to do what they've done. I just didn't have that. And so I was very much afraid. Fear had driven my life in a lot of ways. I was, very much afraid of failing. And I tell a bit of this in my book, but when I was in high school, I was the first person to get accepted to college. Why? Because I applied early. Why did I apply early? Because I was afraid I wasn't going to get in anywhere. So I wanted to mitigate my risk. When I was at Brown and I got my job at Goldman, I was the first person, and certainly among my friend group, and one of the first people in college to get a job offer. I had a job offer basically my junior year after my senior year. Why did I do that? Because I was afraid I was going to end my senior year and not have a job offer. So I mitigated my risk. So many times in my life, I had mitigated risk, and here I was, and I didn't know what to do. And so I'm having these conversations with my wife every single night. And then finally one night, my wife, Tylene, she says, what about this idea? She'd kind of listened to enough of my stupid, crazy, harebrained ideas. She said, what about this? And she said, take a look at this website. It's Etsy.com. Now, at the time, Etsy was a brand new site. It was like very much a startup. Today, it's $1 billion plus company. And for anyone who's not familiar, it's sort of like eBay for handmade products. So if you are a crafter, if you're like a knitter, or you make jewelry, or you're an artist, it's a way to sell handmade products where very much like eBay. And she said, take a look at this. There's this jewelry that's selling like crazy, and it's made using Scrabble tiles from the game and origami paper. And look at this. People are making these pendants. They're making these brooches. They're making these bracelets. And her logic was, listen, we're in Asia. We have access to all the origami paper we could ever want in the world. We're right on the other side of mainland China, where we can set up a little factory to manufacture this jewelry, and we can import it into the United States. Like, this is perfect. And I said, honey, that's a terrible idea. Like, we're not going to do that. Like, that's insane. And so we shut the book on the idea. And weeks went by, and I'm still having these conversations every single night at dinner. My wife would, go to class. She'd teach her class, and I'd be, trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And one night she says, what about the Scrabble tile thing? And I said, honey, I thought we closed the book on that. And she said, no, take a look at this woman's site. She said, and the cool thing about Etsy is that you can see a person's sales history. And that's an important business lesson right there. You could see exactly how much money someone was making before, based on their sales today, the day before, yesterday, the day before that. So you could basically reverse engineer a person's income. And we looked at this woman's shop, and she said, look at what she's doing. She's not selling the jewelry. She's teaching people how to make the jewelry. She was selling this tutorial for about $30 on how to make Scrabble tile jewelry. And she was selling like 10 of these tutorials a day, I think, if I remember. And we did the math. We said she's making like $10,000 a month. And there's like no overhead. There's no inventory. There's no cost of goods sold. It's all profit. And that was one of the first light bulb moments that went off in my mind. And I said, now that's the type of business that I can get into. It's location independent. We can do it from Hong Kong. We can do it from Tibet. We can do it from the Cayman Islands. We can do it from anywhere in the world. So I love that. I love the fact that there were very low startup costs. Like, we didn't have to invest in inventory and molds and production facilities. Literally, we could create a tutorial in our 400 square foot apartment and start selling it. So I said, well, you know what? I don't have any better ideas. And you know what? Let's just try something. So we tried it. And my wife bought the tutorial, and she said, it's not very good. I think we can do a better job. And she said, I think I can learn how to make this jewelry, and we can build a better mousetrap. And that's exactly what we did. So a few weeks later, we start selling the tutorial. We launch a website. And first month we make a couple $100, then $1,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $4,000 a month. We set up a website. We start selling the tutorials on eBay. We move to sites like youcanmakethis.com and Dawanda, which are like wholesalers for these types of tutorials. And before you know it, we're making $8,000 a month. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, like, we're gonna be rich. Like, the numbers are just going up, like 2,000 to 4,000 to 8,000. I'm like, this is easy. This is incredible. And Patrick, literally the next month, our sales went down to almost zero. And I realized at that moment, yet another important business lesson, that the market that we had chosen, Scrabble tile jewelry market, was just a fad. It was just a fad. It was like, Pokemon Go or Beanie Babies or Cabbage Patch Kids or any of these things that like take over the world and then like disappear. My dog wants to sit on my lap now. And then like disappear overnight. And we had this moment where we kind of looked at each other and said, oh crap, now what? We're living in Hong Kong, one of the most expensive cities in the world. We basically burned through pretty much all our savings. My wife is making $500 a month as in her stipend that she gets as a PhD candidate, and we have no other income coming in. And we look at each other and we say, what do we do now? And I can't work in Hong Kong. I don't have a work visa. She only has a student visa. And she said, well, let's do this. I'll finish the program and let's move back to the States and I'll get a job. And she got a job as a museum curator, which is what she went to school for. The only catch was it was in the job was in Brownsville, Texas, quite literally the poorest city in America. And we moved to Brownsville, Texas, less than a mile away from the Mexican border, an apartment with bars on the windows. We didn't even have enough money to bring our stuff back from China with us. So all we could do was just fit whatever we could fit in a couple suitcases, had some souvenirs, some photos, a little bit of clothes. That was it. And we basically had to start over. Started over at ground zero. We had nothing. Had a mattress on the floor, 2 lawn chairs in the living room, which we got as the gift when we opened up our business bank account in America. Like that was like the free gift. You know, they always like try to incentivize you with some like cheap, stupid gift. It was actually 1 lawn chair, but my wife's a good negotiator and she's like, hey, can we get 2? There's 2 of us. And so like that was our living room furniture. We had an old desk that we got. I don't remember, we paid like $20 for this thing. And I had a laptop. I had a laptop that I paid $450 for. And on that laptop and the internet connection that I had, I'd drive my wife to the museum every day. I'd pick her up in the afternoon. We only could afford 1 car, so I'd drive her to and from work. And I got to work.
Did you think you were making did you think at that point you made a mistake quitting your job?
At that moment and leading up to that moment, I thought I screwed up my entire life.
And I think that's kind of an important thing to know, because you know, as we go through, some people would say, oh, well, but you still knew you were going to make it. No, you know, when you leave a really good job and you're sitting on lawn chairs in your living room, suddenly you start to wonder if you made a big mistake.
And here's the thing, Patrick, and I don't know if you've ever experienced this season of your life, but it was at that point that everybody in my life doubted me. They questioned, what the hell are you doing? Everyone that I used to work with at AIG, why'd you throw it all away, man? Dude, you were on the fast track. Like I was on this fast track where I was running at 26 years old. I'm running expansion across China for a Fortune 10 company. I'm opening up sales office in city after city. I'm on a fast track to become president of China for AIG. Like that was my path. If I stuck with it for another 10 years, basically I would have been, you know, the head honcho, responsible for thousands of employees, billions of dollars in revenue. And I would have, you know, that would have been my career path. And I just gave it all.
I'd say that's also to you millions and millions of dollars of income.
Millions of dollars of income. Millions of dollars of, I mean, at that level, you have the huge executive packages that you hear people have. Like that's what you have, you know. And so I gave it all up. And my colleagues at AIG thought I was an idiot. My friends, my college friends, who now had gone to business school, law school, medical school, they're all doctors, lawyers, and you know, in working for companies like Facebook. That's my friend group. They're like, dude, what the hell are you doing, man? My family, why'd you throw it all away? You gotta remember, like, so my parents, even though they didn't go to college, their son, you know, the hope, the great hope for the family, right? Who's going to become a doctor. They're telling their friends, our son's going to become the next great neuroscientist. And I had to tell them, sorry, I'm not going to do that, but I'm going to work on Wall Street instead. But that's still pretty good. That's like still pretty prestigious. So I'm going to do that. I'm actually not going to work on Wall Street. I'm going to work in China, but it's a good job. Like it's in fine. Okay. It's all good. And then to tell them that I'm giving all that up, teach people how to make Scrabble tile jewelry online. I mean, they're like, what did you do? Like, what's wrong with you? And so anyway, so it's definitely a low point. And I'm telling myself, okay, what's my contingency plan? Worst comes to worst, what do I do? Well, I can get a job as an insurance underwriter at some company and maybe make $50,000, $60,000 a year. And you know, the story I kept telling myself was, I'll just do that for a couple of years, save enough money up, and I'm going to make another go at it. That's basically where I was at. And I think the thing, and this is one of the first lessons that I want to share. I know this is just a bit of backstory, And I know some of it is you might be listening to this and, well, what's the point? Why am I telling you this story? Well, I think it's important to understand the context from where someone comes. One of the things that I've learned is that it is so important to study people and how they acted when they were exactly where you are at right now. So whoever your business mentor or person that you look up to is right now, don't study how they act now as a billionaire, a multimillionaire, a millionaire. What did they do when they were in the same season of their life that you're in right now? And for us, I think the thing that I've learned that holds so many people back is they're afraid to give up good in order to go to great. They're afraid to give up their good life. I had a good life, man. It was a good life. I got to travel. Had a sweet apartment. I was living a good life, but there was something missing. And I think a lot of people are in that situation where they're living a good life. They've got a good job, right? They've got a family to support. They're not living on the side of a road in a cardboard box. They've got a home with a mortgage. They've got a car. They've got a car payment. They go on vacation. They've got things. They might not be where they hope to be, but they've got a good life. It's not like they're living in a dumpster digging for garbage. They're not in that situation. And it's this fear of giving up good and what might happen that holds them back from going after great. And I can tell you right now, I can look you right in the eyes and tell you unequivocally, some of our most cherished memories, me and my wife, was in those days in Brownsville, when all we had, 2 lawn chairs in the living room, a mattress on the floor, and all we could afford was $50 a week for a grocery budget. And we have some of the fondest memories that we will have for the rest of our life. We weren't any less happy then than we are now in the big fancy house with all the nice things and making all that money. And I share that because I think a lot of people are afraid of what might happen when you go to that place in order to go after the thing that you really want in life. And so for me, that's been an important lesson. It's also eliminated that fear that held me back for so long around what if it doesn't work? I know what it's like. If it doesn't work, we just go back to a 500 square foot apartment. We sell all the furniture, we can fit in a couple suitcases, and we just start over again. Like, that's it. And we got each other, and now we've got 2 kiddos and as you saw a moment ago, a 5.5 pound dog in my lap. So I think that's important. So the lessons in there that I want to instill and share is, study what Warren Buffett was doing when he was first learning how to invest. Study what Mark Cuban was doing before he launched his first successful company. Whoever your person is, like whoever you look up to or aspire to. And I've learned that is so important. Got to Brownsville, rock bottom, and I basically just got to work. And the thing that unlocked it for me, where I started making a lot of progress, was I began detaching myself from the outcome. I think we become so tied to the outcome. We're so obsessed with when we invest, for example. We have to win. We have to get a certain return. We have to we have to do that. In business, I did what so much of the conventional advice I had received at the time said, which was I had a little piece of paper that I had in my wallet that I'd pull out every single day and look in the mirror and said, I'm going to make, I can't even remember the amount of money. I think it was, I'm going to make $100,000 in the next 6 months. And I would say this affirmation to myself, and I put all this pressure on myself to get these results. And the thing that changed everything for me is I read a book, and the book is called Flow. And it's by a psychiatrist or psychologist by the name of Mahai Csikszentmihalyi. And the lesson that I took from that book was to set a goal, detach yourself from that outcome, and focus 100% of your effort on the process. And that's it.
I
and,
think,
and
I think,
focusing on that process.
I think that's a really very poignant understanding that I could share through my own experience. That's absolutely sage advice, because there are the whole thing about morning rituals and doing your affirmations and getting into all those patterns. Sometimes you feel like the affirmation's a deception you're playing on yourself, and it starts to create all these kind of complex unconscious things that might go on. But also the idea of saying that it's the process that's going to now be what matters. The old adage about it's the journey, not the destination. That these are almost sound like trite, like platitudes and bromides, but that's one that's actually very, very valid.
You can't control. You cannot control. Like, you cannot control if someone will pay you money for what you sell. You can't do it unless Patrick, I'm gonna fly to your house, break through your front door, get your credit card, and hold your hand as you type it in. I cannot control whether or not you pay money, buy something off my website or not. I can't control it. I can influence it, but I cannot control it. The only thing I can control is the effort I put in to the steps that I believe will lead to that outcome.
This is why I think the most genius thing ever written was the Serenity Prayer. I mean, it's just grant me the wisdom to know the difference, right? Yeah. And that is, I think, really important. And for me, the way that occurs, at least, and I wonder if it's the same for you. So I'm asking the question because I think this is, again, something that people who are watching can take this away and start doing this as soon as we're done. Is becoming more kind of a third-party observer of myself. Taking a little bit of step apart rather than being in the emotion and the fear, the frustration, all those things, is to separate myself and look at myself, say, oh, there's Patrick. He's a little bit upset right now, or because things didn't turn out the way. He was a little angry right now about this, or he's a little bit worried about this, and then just start to say, observe it and make peace with it, and just again get back to the process and enjoy the process and not be so attached to the outcome. How do you do it?
I mean, the thing for me, I 100% agree with that. And the thing for me that's been helpful is reframing everything I do as an experiment. It's just an experiment. That's it. Because when you're performing an experiment as a scientist, again, I thought I was going to become a scientist. I've published medical research. I know the scientific method, the scientific process. And when you're conducting an experiment, no matter what the outcome of that experiment, you succeed because you learn. And I've learned to treat everything in business as an experiment. We're going to try something we've never done before. We're going to try it. And either we're going to earn or we're going to learn. And what I've found is that when you're in the early stages of your business, you want to focus on maximizing learning before focusing on maximizing earning. It's counterintuitive. People think you go into business and you start making money right away. Now, the ironic thing was when I made this mental shift in my mind and relieved myself of the pressure of having to make it work right away, that's when the results started coming. Sort of like being in the gym. If you're obsessed with losing belly fat, losing weight, if you're like obsessed with that, you're going to kill yourself because you're going to be so frustrated with your lack of progress or frustrated with things aren't coming fast enough. But if instead you step in the gym and you say, you know what, I'm going to run the best 10 minutes on this treadmill that I've ever done in my entire life. I'm going to run harder than I ever have in these 10 minutes. I'm just going to focus on these 10 minutes and that's it. And you do that tomorrow, and you do that the next day, and you do that the day after that, the pounds are going to come off. That's it. It's counterintuitive because you want to obsess over the result. And for me, it's been a lesson that I've had to learn and relearn and remind myself of over and over again. Because the funny thing is whether you're starting from ground zero, you haven't made your first $100,000, you go from $100,000 to $1 million a year, $1 million to $10 million a year. It's the same thing. It's just another zero, but it's the same process. And that's been an important lesson for me.
One question that I would have is, what advice would you have for the person who's in that, let's call it the Brownsville scenario, and they're literally, their very viability is threatened.
Yeah.
You were able to get down to a point saying, hey, we got $50 a week. Oh shit. Am I here? Everything just went black. I'm like, oh shit, the whole thing just crashed.
As far as I can tell, you're still here.
Okay, good. All right, good. Literally everything went dark and came back. So I don't know. It's the ghost in the machine. So yeah. If that person's in Brownsville, their viability is really threatened. They want to kind of be in the process and not be attached to outcome, but they're really in that survival, that threatening kind of a thing. What is your advice? To find a way just to minimally, remove the threats while you're doing this, or what advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we made a conscious effort to cut our living expenses down to the bone. So the thing that holds a lot of people back is you have a monthly number that you need to hit that puts a lot of pressure on yourself, right? So if you add up all your living expenses, your monthly rent or your mortgage payment, insurance, your car payments, all the extras that you have in your life, and you say, gosh, I need something that's going to get me to here. Well, when we moved to Brownsville, we rented the cheapest apartment we could rent and feel safe in, like that. We didn't feel like we were going to be, physically, getting robbed every night or anything. We got the cheapest car we could get that wasn't going to break down. We were super smart with our grocery bill, right? We shopped at Walmart instead of H-E-B because Walmart had cheaper prices, even though it didn't have all the fancy stuff that we wanted to get. There was that. We didn't have Netflix. We didn't have any of these things. We had the cheapest internet, no cable. All those things that just eat away. We knew I knew what that number was that we needed to hit. My wife's salary, just to put in perspective, was $36,000 a year. Mm-hmm. So that's what we were living on. And we were not only living on that salary, but we were putting money away in savings to fund the business. So I say that to tell, I think the thing that holds a lot of people back is the unwillingness to give up on some of the trappings of life, right? So move into a smaller house, sell your house and get an apartment. It's not going to be forever. Your car, sell your car and get a car you're going to have a $100 a month car payment. Like, there are ways if you're willing to make it work. We got rid of everything we owned, everything. That's incredibly freeing. Try that. All that stuff that you have cluttered in the storage unit in your home, get rid of it. It's incredibly liberating when you realize how simply you can live. Because here's the thing. What I've also learned, and I know you commented on my shirt. This is one of our slogans, Kick Ask. Our company is the Ask Method company, and we teach a marketing methodology known as the Ask Method, which is the methodology we've used in all the different markets that we've since entered in the last decade. But people who know me that I basically wear the same T-shirt every single day. I have it in a bunch of different colors. One of the things I've learned is the importance of eliminating decisions in your life. It's called decision fatigue. I find that people have so much stuff that occupies their brain space in their life, right? Am I going to wear this? Am I going to wear that? What should I eat today? I mean, for me, you might find it boring, but we just, we've got our meals planned. We just, it's all lined up. I don't have to think like, what am I going to eat today? I just kind of eat the same thing. I wear the same thing. I keep my roots simple. I don't have expensive hobbies or things that are distracting. And I've learned that it's important that if this is important to you, if achieving financial freedom, financial independence, and we basically became financially independent, meaning that we could effectively retire and live off of our savings and the income derived from our savings, basically by the time that we were 32 years old. So I know what it's like and what it takes to really make it happen. I do what I do because I love the game of it. It's a lot of fun. I love the impact that I get to make in my clients' lives because I get to see them experience their same version of this journey. And to see that moment where someone makes their first sale ever online, to experience that moment where someone has their first $100,000 year, to experience that moment when someone has their first $100,000 month, where they say, I made more money last month than I made in my entire year of my job. To see someone go from getting started to becoming a millionaire, that to me is like incredible. Like the hair on the back of my neck right now is standing up because I see how it changes not only the life of the person involved, but the ripple effect. Like there's this guy Nir, he's Israeli, and he was struggling in his online business. We started working together. He did his first webinar, basically at the time of this recording, 4 months ago. First sale on a webinar online ever. Never done a webinar before. Right? Never done a webinar before. Makes his first sale. Then he has his first $10,000 month. Then his first $40,000 month. First $100,000 month. Now he's making $10,000 a day in a matter of 4.5, 5 months. And I think, okay, this guy, he has changed the life, his wife's life, each of his kids' lives. They're going to have, now he's able to do things that he was never able to do for his family, for his community, and the positive impact that that's having. They're now donating, sizable amounts of money to charitable causes. The ripple effect is incredible. So for me, like I live for that. Like that's the thing that like fires me up. That's the fuel, the soul piece that I was missing when I was working a corporate job, working for someone else.
And that's when, one takeaway from that story, and there's many, is that it can become explosive. It can get from 0 to 100 pretty quickly when, and everybody talks about the proverbial overnight success, right? They don't see everything that led up to boom, that kind of explosive period. I call it the squatting, where you're squatting for a long time, then suddenly you can jump. So for you, what was, maybe in short, what was the path from Brownsville lawn chairs to kind of breaking through and saying we're making real money now?
Yeah, so we get to Brownsville, and the lessons that I learned in that first Scrabble business were as follows. So number one, I learned selling digital educational products is, I believe, the best business model, especially when you're first getting started. Startup costs are incredible. Like the fact that we could create this product in our tiny little Hong Kong student housing with almost no upfront investment and start making money on it right away. Like that to me was like ding, 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 this is it. And I advocate so strongly for it for that reason. And then I also learned the importance of not going into a fad market. Like I learned that the market that we went into was a bad market because it was a market that was hot 1 month and then disappeared the next month. So when I went to Brownsville, I started doing research and said, what markets can I sell information, sell some form of education in a market that is evergreen, that's going to be around forever? So I started looking at markets that are around forever. And I started looking at, well, if the Scrabble tile jewelry market was a hobby that lasted, 5 minutes, what are the hobbies that have been around forever? Like, what are the oldest hobbies in America? Stuff that people have been doing like forever. And I found in my research that the number 1 or number 2 hobby in America every year for like the last 100 years was the same thing: gardening. I said, okay, here's a market that is not going anywhere. It may change, it may evolve over time. It's not going anywhere. So I started doing research for sub-niches and niches within the gardening market. And I was making my big, long list of all the markets that I was researching that I now, teach people how to go through this process. And I found that there was one that was very intriguing, and it reached the list because when we lived in China, it was a plant that we tried to grow in our apartment, and it died. And the plant that I'm talking about is the flower orchids. And I learned the reason why that made the list is because we bought a bunch of orchids in our apartment, and literally like a week later they died. And I thought, well, if we had this type of problem, keeping our orchids alive, we're probably not the only ones. And so I started doing research, and I found that there was a market there. There was an opportunity. And with that mindset of focusing on the process and not worrying about the income, I got to work. And in Brownsville, within 18 months, we took that business from nothing to $25,000 a month.
Wow.
So I moved from living on $50 a week grocery budget to making $25,000 a month. I had more than replaced my income that I was making at AIG. And at that point, my wife quit her job. We thought, okay, we'll quit her job. And we moved from Brownsville to Austin, Texas, which is where we've been ever since. And I thought that market was a fluke because I thought the same thing was going to happen to us in the Orchid market that happened in the Scrabble market. So I raced to go into another market. And this time I said, all right, I'm going to make my parents happy. I'm going to use my neuroscience background. And we decided to create a business teaching people how to improve their memory. Took that business from nothing to $500,000 a year. And then over the past decade, following the same process, launched niche businesses, basically in the education and expertise space, so teaching people something in 23 different markets. And we went into high-end water filtration. We went into golf, tennis, dog training, alkaline health, business funding. The list goes on.
So I've got two questions based on this that I think are important. Incidentally, I've been so engrossed in what you're talking, your story and what you're saying that I forgot to do some shout outs. So I'll do some quick ones, but Heather's checking in from Los Angeles. Thank you. Stephen from Torrance, California is checking in. How you doing, Stephen? Michael from New York City, East Coast. And then we got Doug from Columbus, Indiana. So we got the coast, we got the Midwest. Everybody's covered. We're good. So here's the questions. You obviously very bright, very analytical. You come from a research context, so you're methodical, and of course, your books and what you teach, you create methodology. It's just the way you're wired. And so your approach was to analyze and find the right market to enter. And that's one approach. So basically you said, my purpose is to be in my own business and to, and create products of value and market them and transact. Other people have a passion, and it's their passion that they're taking to the marketplace rather than analyzing the market and saying, where's there room for for me to move in? Can you just comment on that, one versus the other, and how you see it?
Yeah, so in working with literally thousands of entrepreneurs over the past decade, I found that there are really four main types of entrepreneurs. So, and I've touched on one of them, but I'll touch on all four. So the first type is what we call a mission-based entrepreneur. Mission-based entrepreneurs tend to have some sort of wrong that they want to make right in the world. They've got a cause that they would die on a hill for. One of the examples of a mission-based entrepreneur, someone I talk about in my book, Choose, her name is Christy Kennedy. Her situation was as follows. Her son in elementary school was diagnosed with autism, and he was bullied in the schoolyard. And as a mom, she had to step in. Like, she had to get involved with the school and talk to the principal and the school administration. Well, one thing led to another, and she felt like she wanted to eliminate bullying, not just for her son, but in the entire school. She wanted to make it her mission to just eliminate bullying in the school, period. That led her to want to eliminate bullying across the entire school district, then the entire state. And now she's built a nonprofit that eliminates bullying in schools across America, and she served thousands of schools. So she's an example of someone who built her business because she was drawn to a mission. She wanted to move the world away from something negative. Mm-hmm. Now, in contrast, you have a phrase that you use, which is what we describe as passion-based entrepreneurs. So passion-based entrepreneurs are the type of person that have some sort of passion, something that they love, something that they want to share with the world. So oftentimes they might be, a musician or a hobbyist. They might be a guitarist. They might have a love for Porsche cars. They might be a fly fisherman. They have some sort of passion that they want to transform into their vocation. So they want to move the world towards something positive, whereas the mission-based entrepreneur wants to move the world away from something negative. Mm-hmm. Third type, you have what's called the opportunity-based entrepreneur. So opportunity-based entrepreneurs don't necessarily have a mission or a passion that really drives them, but they're the type of person that kind of looks around the world and says, how is it that nobody's created a solution to this problem, right? They look around, they say, God, my water bottle doesn't stay cold. How is it that nobody's built a water bottle that can actually keep the water cold? And they just have this knack for seeing these opportunities everywhere. Not everybody's wired that way. Now, that's the most classic sense of the entrepreneur, and I think the most kind of sort of classic definition. Now, the fourth type is actually the type that I fell into, which is what we describe as the undecided entrepreneur. These are people who know they want to be their own boss, know they want to start a business. They just have no idea what that might be. Now, if you're an undecided entrepreneur like I was, I'd advocate and recommend you do the same thing that I did, which is you start with a practice business. So if you're listening to this right now and you're saying, yeah, I want to start a business, but I don't know what it is, don't spend the next 6 months, 12 months, 5 years thinking about someday maybe what might you start. Start something now, because I'll tell you this, just like the skill of learning how to drive a car, there's a skill involved in launching a business. And just like when you learn how to drive a car, that skill is something that will serve you for the rest of your life. And much like learning how to drive a car, Patrick, I don't know what car you learned how to drive when you were first learning how to drive, but my car that I learned how to drive in was not my dream car. It was not my forever car. It was an old beater, but it got the job done. I learned the skills. I learned how to parallel park. I learned how to drive on the highway. I learned how to drive stick. Like, I learned the skills that I now have with me for the rest of my life. And when I think about and calculate the value of that skill, it's immeasurable. Like, the skill of learning how to drive, how much that's been worth to me as an individual, incredibly valuable. And so when you start a business, even if it's a practice business, the skill of learning how to research a market, how to figure out what that market wants, how to build what we call a sales funnel, which is where you take people from not knowing who you are online to becoming a customer, and the steps involved with that. The skill of setting up your email, the skill of setting up a Facebook ad, the skill of building a website. All these skills are things that will carry you for the rest of your career. And so for me, I learned when I started the orchid business, when I did it in the memory business, it was the same process. It was just lather, rinse, repeat. Took that business to $500,000 a year, and then went on to do it 23 different times. So for the person who is passionate about a topic, what you want to do is start with your passion and then take a look at that passion and ask yourself, is this something that is not only going to fuel my soul, but will it actually fill my bank account as well? Meaning, is there profit opportunity in that market? You need to look at things like, is there the right amount of competition? If you go into a market that has no competition, that's not a good thing, right? One of my mentors taught me that pioneers get shot, settlers get rich. What that means is you do not want to be the first to try to figure out something online. What's the lesson to take away from the Etsy example? Is that I wasn't the first person trying to sell Scrabble tile jewelry tutorials on Etsy. Someone else already figured it out. They already blazed the trail. Right? They already climbed Everest. They made the path. And I learned that all I need to do is walk that same path and maybe do it just a little bit better, and it's going to work. So you got to find a market that you got to make sure there's enough competition. You want to be in a market that's not too big, not too small. So you may need to have to niche down. You may need to niche up. You want to make sure that there are what we call players with money in your market. Are there people that have money to spend? You can't sell to broke people. It's one big mistake that I see people make, especially if you're in that mission category where you want to serve people. You're drawn to serve people. But listen, if you can't put food on the table, if you can't build a viable organization, then you're not going to be able to help anybody. So you need to make sure that you're going into a market where there are people that have money to spend. I learned this the hard way in the memory market when I found out that most of our customers were broke college and grad students. Those are the people who wanted to improve their memory. They're studying for the MCATs, the LSATs, big standardized tests to go to graduate school, the GMATs. And I don't know about you, but when I was in college, like I had $500 in my bank account. Like I couldn't invest in a $300 online course. So it capped the growth in that business. So I mean, these are just, I'm going rapid fire now because I know our time's limited, and some of the key lessons along the way, but the overarching lesson is that the single most important decision you make when you're at the stage where you're trying to figure out what business to go into is not what to sell. It's actually, who are you going to serve? Who is your market? Who is your ideal prospect? And there's figuring that out.
Yeah, and really, really good understanding and content for somebody who's maybe indecisive or struggling, figuring out how do I approach this. One other lesson we learned along the way that was an important one, once you define all those things, also is what's the access to that market.
Yep.
You might say, oh, there's this great market, but then we never could find the right access to get to it, which is a critical variable. At least was for us. So we've got only maybe a few minutes here, so this is a big question for a few minutes. But and let me repeat this before we close, also, that every one of you, as a bonus, had the opportunity to get Ryan's book, Choose. If you missed it, if you missed the link, you never got it, there it is right there. Thank you. Then if you contact our customer support, so we have specific customer support for this masterclass. So if it is sorry, my dog's now barking in the background. So it's a masterclass support at moneyrevealed.com. Say, link for Ryan's book, please. They'll send you the link. You fill out the form, and it's going to be a physical book shipped to you. So you get to hold it. It's not just a digital thing. So, and Ryan, thank you again so much for offering that. So in the closing thoughts here, to kind of summarize, because this is really what you're known for, where your expertise is, what has been, we talk about inflection points, and inflection points for many entrepreneurs has been learning Choose or learning your ask method. So how in these successes did you utilize these things in your books for Choose or ask method? How did you apply them and make them work?
Yeah, so as I was going into, when I launched the orchid business and the memory business and went into all the different markets, it wasn't, again, the reason why I went into market after market, I think, was because I had that first failure. And had I not had that first failure, I might have just launched one of these things and just kind of called it a day. But I was so fearful that it was all going to fall apart. So as soon as I got one working, my vision was, okay, if I can build 20 $500,000 businesses, I will have a $10 million a year empire. And if any one of them disappears, I'm not going to lose any more than 5% of my income. Like that was my logic. So if one disappeared, well, great. I learned about diversification when I learned about investing, and I learned about the importance of distributing your risk. And so, as I was going into market after market, the intent was never to create this methodology. It was a methodology that evolved, and I started telling people the story of what I had done, and effectively people started asking, well, can you help me with that? And over time, this process that I've just described of choosing your market by going through this very detailed yet somewhat simple process for evaluating markets that have promise, then asking that market a very specific set of questions to figure out what are the unmet needs in that market, so you can create a product that's guaranteed to sell. And then finally build a machine that generates sales every single day on autopilot, so you can make money literally while you sleep. That process of choose, ask, build has come to be known as the ask method. And that's the process that I've used to enter 23 different markets. I've now, my team and I, and when I say my team and I, we've built a company. We have about 65 employees. And what we do all day, every day, is work with entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs to go through this same process. And I think it's a process that'll resonate with anybody who's sort of wired the same way I'm wired, which is really being afraid to go all in. I'm not one of these classic entrepreneurs who, threw all my, chips on the table. I learned in my first business that when you do that, like, you can lose it all. So everything that I've designed along the way has been about how do I make sure the market I'm going to go into is going to be successful? Great. Check that box. Next step. How do I figure out that the thing I'm going to create and sell is actually going to make money before I create it? Okay, check that box, sell. How do I make sure the machine I'm building to generate customers coming to my website every single day is going to be successful? Check that box. So it's a process for anybody who is looking to build either a 6 or even 7-figure business online, even if you're starting from scratch. And that's really what the Ask method is in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, and boy, you're good. Right on the minute. Wow.
I was watching the clock. I was like, I gotta end this thing. I gotta land this thing. You
got that clock in here. That's awesome. Phenomenal content. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for sharing and delivering value to this audience. And now we get to have the fun on the Thursday night to see what kind of questions they have. And
that's where the real fun begins. Like, who cares what I have to say? Listen, if you're watching this right now, I would love to get your questions, because really the thing that I can do and be of highest service to you is for you to throw your whatever questions are on your mind and to cover as many of those questions as possible. So I'm super looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun session. I'm looking forward to it also, because just seeing it all come in and seeing what comes out, it's you never know what's going to happen next, and it's a whole lot of fun. So thanks so much. Thanks for and thank you to your family for giving you up for an hour tonight.
It's also my birthday today. I thought I'd share that.
Is it really?
It's my birthday, and I'm headed to New York City first thing in the morning tomorrow to do an interview with NBC News. So it's a busy week. I'm so excited to be here. I'm glad we can make it work. I think it was originally scheduled for tomorrow. I was like, can't do it. Like, I'll do it on my birthday. So I'm celebrating with you, Patrick, and everyone watching this right now.
Happy birthday, and thank you for giving us a present on your birthday. And I'm going to let you get right back to it. So for all you, we appreciate you. Thanks for being out there. Ryan, now a triple thanks for doing this on your birthday. Have great success in New York, and we'll look forward to being with you on Thursday.
Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care.